What happened?
I was walking in the hallway to go to the bathroom, and I heard like she started walking here because in his hands, and like she ran away. Like he was yelling so much.
You said he was yelling?
Yeah, he told me to stop running and like aim the gun at me.
Give me 1 second. What is your first and last name? And repeat that phone number for me one more time. Okay, gonna type everything you provided. My partner's gonna get help your way, okay?
Okay. Thank you. I hear somebody. Somebody's walking in the bathroom.
You said somebody's walking in the bathroom?
No, wait.
Are you still there? Still there? Dong and Dean? Yes. I think so. Hello? A call on admin line? As far as I'm concerned, yes, it's happening. Stop her. Yeah. He said it was in the main hallway.
This call, accompanied by the dispatcher hearing what clearly sounded like 2 gunshots, prompted a large response by police, fire, EMS, and school district personnel. The high school has 2 school resource officers assigned, and both were on campus when this call came out via the police radio. They learned that the shooter was reportedly in a hallway, so they separated. One went upstairs, one went downstairs. That is important to note because while it increased the danger to these officers who might be more exposed because they were working solo, it increased the safety for the students and staff because they could simultaneously clear the major hallways on 2 floors. I applaud their quick actions. Other officers were on scene in less than 3 minutes. So formal contact teams were established, and one of our SWAT sergeants assumed interior command. A second sergeant remained outside of the school and stood up external command, which was then joined by fire and EMS personnel. With unified command in place within minutes, police and fire began working the problems. Police were made aware of a female student who was on campus and reportedly saw the gunman. Because school district personnel were at unified command, we were able to identify and eventually locate the student. She is a juvenile. Because of this, one of my detectives escorted the student out of the school for questioning. I'm aware of some parents who claim that an officer removed their child from the school while everyone else's child had to remain inside. I hope this clears up any misunderstanding. We learned the involved juvenile received the information from another student, so that student was also removed and interviewed. The source of those text messages has been fully investigated and may result in school district taking action, but the superintendent will address that issue. Simultaneous to us going room to room inside of the school, we were investigating the call that came into the dispatch center. We learned that number was involved in 2 incidents, one in Hunt County, Texas, and one in Kent County, Michigan. Because this crosses state lines, we are working closely with the FBI to identify the source of these swatting calls. We want all law enforcement agencies to be aware of our swatting incident because of the sophistication shown on this specific one. Swatting is defined as a malicious tactic of making hoax emergency calls to an emergency service to falsely report a fictitious ongoing emergency at a particular location. This is done to cause chaos and provoke a large law enforcement response. San Marcos's offense was premeditated, as evidenced by the suspect knowing the address of the high school when asked by the dispatcher, and having pre-recorded sounds of gunfire, or at least that mimic the sounds of gunfire. The fact that this has now occurred in at least 3 jurisdictions from the same number needs to be known by all law enforcement, which will be coordinated through the Austin Regional Intelligence Center, which is our nearby fusion center. In 2023, the FBI launched the Virtual Command Center to address swatting. This is an awareness initiative and serves as a collaborative space for public safety partners like us to report their incidents for national awareness and help create a real-time operational picture of swatting events. As said before, we are working with the FBI regarding this incident. More specifically, we're working with the FBI in both the Austin offices and the San Antonio offices. I want to communicate directly to our parents. Thank you for your understanding during this difficult investigation and response. We spoke to many of you who believed we were working from the onset to the conclusion to ensure your children's safety and well-being. Some were upset because of the large law enforcement presence outside of the school and the concern that there were no officers inside. There were more than 50 officers inside searching all buildings. We had officers from nearly every law enforcement agency. Many of the people seen standing outside were actually rescue task forces who were assembled to provide medical care should that have been necessary. When I learned that the phone call was a hoax, and after we had confirmed with both students that they had not seen a gunman on campus, I conferred with the district and lifted the lockdown. I'm aware that some people inside the school said their rooms were never searched. That is correct, because it made no sense to continue clearing the school when we had already deemed the threat to be a hoax. Instead, we wanted to end this intense situation by allowing reunification with parents at the school versus going off-site. I will now ask Dr. Cardona to speak on behalf of the district, and then we will answer any questions afterwards. Sir?
Thank you, Chief. Again, thank you all to all of y'all who are being here. My name is Dr. Michael Cardona, Superintendent of Schools. First and foremost, I want to thank our students who handle themselves amazingly in a very difficult situation, an anxiety-filled situation, to our staff members inside the building who were professional at all times, to our parents, as Chief said, who handled themselves and who were funneled to our appropriate means of communication. I want to take this time to also emphasize the importance of accurate information. Anytime SMCISD is dealing with safety situation, we encourage all stakeholders to follow our SMCISD website, our SMCISD social media platforms, and or the City of San Marcos Police Department's social media platforms. Those are the official chains of communication. Yesterday, our safety protocols were in full effect, and we will always err on the side of caution as the safety of our students and our staff are highest priority. During these types of safety situations, SMPD takes over the campus. In essence, it becomes a criminal scene. And as administrators, even I step back, let the professionals do what they need to do, and when they make the decision that the campus is safe, then we go back into play. But we always defer to law enforcement officials. I'd like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for the recognition that our community has shown to our students and our staff regarding our implementation of our standard response protocol. And for those in the community to know that San Marcos has been implementing the standard response protocols in Hays County for many, many years, and they work. It's because of the dedication and commitment of our students and staff to make our safety practices effective. Your support encourages them to continue their hard work and proceed with safety as the utmost importance. Together, we can continue to ensure a safe and nurturing environment for all our campuses. As far as the students involved, we are working with SMPD, and our campus administrators are conducting their investigation, and potentially, if found to be guilty, they would face not only criminal charges, but school district charges as well. I want to thank, again, our community for the support we've received over the last 24 hours. San Marcos High School is a campus with approximately 2,500 students, 175 staff members. Our safety page from yesterday's setting up to now has been viewed over 28,882 times. The last message we sent out last night at 7 o'clock, which was sent from the principal and myself, has been viewed over 19,000 times. That means our community understands our protocols, the vast majority of them, and funnel to the information that we want to give them that's the most accurate, and at the end of the day, provides them the most calm and reassurance. Thank y'all.
If I could just briefly summarize a couple of key talking points, and then we'll answer any questions that you have. I think it's important to note that when this call was first received, it was treated with absolute fidelity. We would eventually prove it to be a hoax, but we responded appropriately. The school resource officers, I can't thank them enough, immediately went into action. Officers were on scene in less than 3 minutes. Contact teams flooded the buildings and began to systematically search the building. More than 50 officers inside searching. Those who were seen outside were part of rescue task forces. There, should it be necessary, to provide medical care. We had unified command set up within a matter of minutes, working cooperatively with Chief Les Stevens and his staff at the fire department and our EMS team. The school district was standing shoulder to shoulder exactly as we have rehearsed. So, to our parents, I know this was very trying, very frustrating. We tried to communicate early and often, as Dr. Cardona expressed. So with that, do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
I was hoping you could clarify one point you were making about this number being used in multiple jurisdictions, as in there were other hoaxes using this same line before. Can you clarify that for me?
The question was, can I clarify the number that was reportedly used to make similar hoaxes to other jurisdictions? We redacted the name given in this audio tape as well as the phone number that he provided. The phone number that he provided in this recorded line is a verified phone number. Detectives have been in contact with the owner of that verified phone number. That verified phone number has been confirmed to have been involved in 2 other swatting incidents in 2 states, likely 3 more. Yes, ma'am.
Could you talk about the students again? Were the 2 students involved?
So during the process, 2 students.
Repeat the question.
So the question is, were 2 students involved? During the process of investigating, San Marcos Police Department did receive notification of 2 students receiving text messages, and we were able to track those students down within the building to question them further regarding comments made in the texts. And those were the students that were pulled out by the officers to be interviewed. And they are minors.
What's next for these students? A lot of times, I mean, happening in other districts as well, we hear students taken away, questioned by police. I think a lot of parents are wondering, does that student or do those students end up back in the classroom, back on campus? And if so, do you monitor? What's kind of the next step there?
So it is a comprehensive investigation. Not only is there the legal side of administrators doing an investigation, there's also a social-emotional component, right? A lot happens in an investigation. Intent is a big deal. What was the intent of the communication? You know, typically, if a kid pulls a fire alarm, we liken this to a kid purposely going and pulling a fire alarm. It's just nowadays, it's social media. So if it is found that this behavior was on purpose to cause disruption, there is the criminal side of punishment, and then there is the district side, which can be all the way up to expulsion.
I know that, you know, you won't release the names to the media, obviously, but the kids and the parents and teachers, they know these kids on campus. It creates fear, I would assume. I mean, how do you reassure the parents this kid is not going to do anything when we've seen other instances where, you know, they end up acting on something?
Well, at the end of the day, I think we have processes in place. You know, the campus, in addition to their normal 6 counselors, have 2 socio-emotional therapists. They also have Project Aware, which is a state grant. So we have a clinical therapist on campus. So we have already opened that up for families, for staff members to go and talk to. I was at lunch today. They were out. Any student wanting to come and just have a conversation with counselors. And at the end of the day, you know, this is meant to cause fear, but it's not meant to stop. We have to continue normal activities, and that is the message to the community. We're not going to allow this. We have a really good partnership with our law enforcement and first responders, and kids are better inside the building, and we have the resources to support that whole child support.
So in these situations, these kids could end up back on campus, back in the classroom?
Well, we are a public school, so we are legally bound to only remove them for a certain amount of time. So it is possible at some point, you know, if it's determined, they would return at a certain point. But there's also a transition plan that accompanies that, right, to ensure that the safety of the campus is met.
Were those 2 students involved with the caller, or was it incidental?
The question was, were those 2 students involved with the caller who called the actual dispatch center, or was this just incidental? Great question. That literally took us a while to work through. We were able to disprove the call to our dispatch center in about an hour's time frame. However, we had not yet spoken to both students, and it was our understanding early on that the students had seen a gunman walking down the hallway. So I wasn't ready to discuss with the district lifting the lockdown until we at minimum spoke to both of those students. So that's what also caused it to be a little bit longer of a delay. It turns out those 2 students were completely unrelated, had no knowledge of the call. So it's completely incidental. The students, mindful that they were under lockdown, communicate externally. That gets communicated to a third party. Third party then communicates to somebody back on the school district, and before you know it, you have a bunch of erroneous information that's being circulated. Yes, sir.
I was wondering if both of y'all could talk about the different frustrations as an educator and as a law enforcement for something that's so disruptive and I imagine so expensive to happen, just from both of your perspectives, the different frustrations that come with that.
Yeah, the question is, can we both, Dr. Cardona and I, speak to our frustrations related to these swatting incidents? Let me say first and foremost, swatting is not a prank. Swatting is a criminal offense. More specifically, for the state statute, it's called false alarm or report, and it's a felony offense if it involves a campus. Because we are working with our federal partners, and because we believe this crossed state lines, we believe that this could also qualify for a federal offense. The federal offense is found in 18 U.S. Code 1038, and it carries 5 years if there are no injuries, which we reported no injuries, and a fine. I'll say that again. At the state level, this is a felony. At the federal level, This is 5 years of confinement. So from a law enforcement perspective, it's not a prank. I would ask all of us parents, of whom I'm one, we need to have this conversation with our kids. It's not a prank. It's a very serious issue. Dr. Cardona?
I think the frustration for me as superintendent is more about what's happening with our students and their mental health and to our staff, right? That's the frustration. The law enforcement will take care of the investigating that they need to do, but we really work hard at whole child development in San Marcos, and an incident like this that we don't control, that's somebody outside our building, is the frustrating part, and it's for the kids and it's for the staff in the building.
Does this cause loss of learning for the kid? I mean, talk about that, and even if you go from a lockdown back to normal school, some of these kids have severe anxiety and maybe affect them into the weeks.
Yeah, the superintendent has severe anxiety, so for them, I mean, it affects the entire system. We just have recovered from COVID, which is something we didn't control, but then you have this issue which we don't necessarily control. And so, yes, there is learning loss. It is really difficult for kids, for high school kids in particular, and for kids who come from a certain demographic that have lack of access to mental health resources. When something like this happens, we have to stop educating and just take care of the kid first so we can get their regulation down and we can get them back on track. And then, maybe in a week we'll be back to semi-normal, but it doesn't leave our kids and our staff members' minds. I think we've had some staff members that express some of their sentiments, and I think they express it really well. And I would encourage you to look at it because I think it kind of shows a portrait of what they're thinking during the moment.
Do you have makeup days? I mean, is that even factored in, or is that something that needs to be looked at down the line?
That's a great question. You asked if there were makeup days. There are no makeup days. High schools are a little bit different. That's a fantastic question. And so we go by period. So we had already taken attendance for the day. However, because this incident, because we have a criminal offense, we have a case number, we have a legitimate disruption that happened, we will submit a waiver to the state of Texas so that attendance can be wiped out for the entire day and we get credit for it.
You have a question over here?
Yeah, just really quick, I just want to verify you guys have not tracked down the actual caller.
The question, have we tracked down the actual caller? The answer is no. This investigation is still underway. I would imagine it's going to take a while with us working with our federal partners, but I believe we will make an arrest in this situation.
What does this do for your resources? I mean, having to, respond in such a big fashion, there's other crimes going on. What if there's another incident in another school? I mean, what does that do for you and the safety of the other campuses in the district, other people?
The question was, what does this do for our resources, referring to law enforcement resources and really the safety overall from across the city and other campuses? Swatting is ultimately defined as causing an immeasurable response by a law enforcement agency. It did just that. All other calls for service ceased throughout the city as we kept the main thing, which was protecting our most vulnerable. So literally all peace officers were diverted to the high school campus as they should have been. But it's not just our resources. It's the fire department. It's EMS. It's mutual aid. We had law enforcement peace officers coming from Travis County, from Austin, from Buda, from Kyle, from Hays County, from Guadalupe County. We had officers coming and deputies and marshals from everybody. So it impacts everybody. But I'm also almost careful to even say that because some people are going to want to do it because of that. Here's what I'll simply remind you of. It's 5 years on the federal side. It's a felony on the state side. Yes, sir.
Time for one more question.
The last thing I just wanted to ask is, this caller from out of state aside who seems to be involved in multiple similar hoaxes. Here in just our area, there have been multiple hoaxes in recent weeks. AISD's dealt with this, Pflugerville's dealt with this. I mean, just in the last several weeks, a lot of school districts are dealing with this issue. I don't know if this is a fair question for the superintendent or not, but I mean, what needs to happen at a community level? What's the message here about this issue?
So the question is about the message regarding issues like this. It's a great question. We continue to communicate. We have a great communications team that crafts really good messages. We do constantly send out reminders to parents asking them for their help. We have the safety tip hotlines that are anonymous that we ask them to use. I do want to comment on the question you asked earlier regarding safety. It's an extreme disruption for the city of San Marcos. Our school board is very proactive, and so we have school marshals on every elementary and pre-K campus. So during this event, they were not taken off site. So for parents in the community, they need to understand our school resource officers that were on the secondary campuses, both middle schools, and our school marshals that are at the elementaries were not diverted. So those campuses remained. Obviously, those safety people were monitoring what was happening, but for the parent around us, they can feel good that internally our safety systems worked.
Just, do you have anything to say to the students as they watch this story tonight? I mean, I think we've echoed it a few times, but I mean, just your thoughts as superintendent to see these kids, maybe they think it's a game, they think it's a joke, but I mean, if you're talking to them directly, what do you tell them?
So my message to the students is I'm going to focus on the 97% of the kids that do right, that make good choices. Like I really appreciate, we talk about student-led leadership, student-led campuses, right? The kids own their campus, like they're going to tolerate certain things or not. And so my message really is to them to thank them again. They did what they were supposed to do. We allowed them to communicate with their parents, in the classrooms. And I think that eased some anxieties, but just appreciate the way that they didn't allow this outside person to detract from them. And I'm hopeful that the 97 to 99% will stay the 97 to 99%. And they will not only continue to do well, but they will help us refine how we do things so we can adapt and maybe put some new systems if we have another crisis that put like systematic checkpoints to allow them to communicate with their parents. I think that's better for everybody. And so I think they're going to help us get better.
Chief, if I could just have one follow-up. Just why do you think we're seeing such an uptick now? Are we seeing more calls come in, or is it just, more serious now with the things we've seen recently, Georgia and other school shootings?
Before I answer your question, and I'll repeat the question, I want to follow up on what Dr. Cardona said. I think often we forget our public safety telecommunicators, but I want you to have paid attention to that call. That's a live person on the other end, that telecommunicator who is handling that call. And she doesn't know for a long time that this is a hoax. So I'm thankful that we have a strong chaplain in this department. He followed up with her last night, checking on her status. But you asked a great question, or you asked a question about how it impacts our organizations. Let's not forget those public safety telecommunicators. They're a crucial piece to public safety. Repeat your question. I apologize.
I think, there have been school threats over the years, but, why now do you think we're seeing such an uptick, not only here but across the nation?
Why are we seeing such an uptick, not only here but across the nation? I think it's coupled with advances in technology. So more and more people know what spoofing is and how to do spoofing. And so swatting is becoming more and more popular. And I think you have a ton of copycats out there. And maybe my profession needs to do a better job of communicating the criminal penalties thereof. I do believe that there is a higher prevalence, as evidenced by the FBI, creating literally a collaborative site in 2023 to handle swatting. Lauren, if you'll come back up and close us out.